So we're live with the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting on the 5th of February 2020, and we will be working from the agenda that's in the Node.js TSC repo issue 810. And first of all, are there any announcements to be made today?
We should probably announce the nomination of Ruben.
Okay, thanks, Trot.
And is Ruben here? I guess is he now a member of the TSC or just about to become one? Or?
Nominated, but he needs to be invited. We going to do the vote yet?
Okay, so nominated but not onboarded.
Yeah, he needs to be invited to. Usually we would invite to have them join for a few weeks.
Oh, right, I remember that. It's kind of a couple weeks thing. Okay, I was just wondering what the current state was, whether it was like all on board or just partly.
Yeah. Yeah, just going forward from here, we should be invited.
Sure, okay. Well, there's an observer probably for the next meeting. And any other announcements before we move on to the agenda issues? Nope. Okay, so the first issue is in Node.js Node, and it's the doc add example for Cypher update, and it's PR 28373. Can anyone speak to this issue? I'll just see who added it to the agenda.
I didn't add it, but I can say a bit about it. It's the original issue was a concern about code duplication, that it's essentially copying another example from the crypto API. And so that's what the discussion was originally about. So a couple of people approved it and someone objected to it. And I just requested changes myself because I noticed a couple of technical issues with it. I don't think this example should land as it is, whether it's duplicating code or not. It's not a good example for this API. It has a couple of technical issues with the chosen cipher. It doesn't encrypt all of the data. It only encrypts 2 blocks, and those 2 blocks are not really what the user would expect. So I wouldn't want to land it as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question for the TSC is more like, are we okay with just mostly duplicating examples in our documentation? Not really this specific PR, right? Or at least that was my impression.
And I think when you can often use this kind of clicking from your line. There you go. Yeah, I mean, since all of the documentation is just in a big old file, duplicating examples within it is kind of not great when they're large examples. If both places that need that example can reference it, right? Just have one instance of it and both places point to it. That'd be great. That'd be better, I think. So,
but I don't think that's the case here, because the example is not even really, the example that's being duplicated isn't really a good example for the API in question. It's just like, oh, it happens to use it, so copy paste it, and
that's fine. So yeah. In that case,
so in this particular case, like I just think that like this pull request, if the user's not engaging, then we should probably just close it. But that's my opinion. I also note that this is this probably was not a good thing to give to this at the event. But I noted that in the issue tracker for that.
Yeah.
I don't really know if there's a whole lot for us to actually discuss and decide here. Ruben, I think, is the one who brought it, who wanted it discussed in this meeting, and so maybe leaving it on for next week when hopefully he'll be here for it. Might not be a bad approach.
Cool. Okay, with that, we can move on to the next one if we're all agreed. Okay, so the next issue on the agenda is async hooks introduce async storage API, and it's pull request 26540 over in Node.js node. Can anyone speak for this one today?
If that works, I can. And that probably is deeply linked with the next item, which is issue 807 on the TSC repo. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me today. I'm sorry if this is not brilliant, but I did not prepare and I'm a bit stressed out. I guess I was invited to help you get a better status on what's happening with the three pull requests. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks. So I will try to be brief. There are currently 3 pull requests. One of them authored by Stefan and Matteo that expose the current asynchronous resource. And there are 2 other pull requests that implements higher level API that aims at providing local storage through the event loop to users. There is one I authored in March last year that do not rely on the first pull requests because back then this pull request was closed or not moving anymore. And there is one opened by Andre in December that relies totally on the first pull request mentioned. So that's one of the first difference between these 2 pull requests. As of today, the original pull request execution asynchronous resource is blocked by a few comments and a potential introducing a potential memory leak on the APIs that are built over it. So Matteo, feel free to interrupt me if I'm saying something that you did not design, but my understanding was that this pull request originally aimed at enabling building a CLS API without using a destroy hook and in a memory safe way. Right now, because of some resources being reused, it's not possible to reach that goal without a destroy hook. And one of the major concerns with using a destroy hook is that they have a significant performance impact. When I created my PR, I created it with the goal to rebase it over exec async resource eventually when it will be merged and when all of these issues will be covered. So right now, I don't think current exec resource is mergeable, but I am not sure because it's some internals I'm not fully understanding how hard it is to fix these issues. Regarding the difference between the 2 high-level PRs, there is not a lot of differences anymore, and there won't be a lot of them after the rebase of my PR or my code if it's merged before. The main differences are that in my PR, we force the user to use a map to store their context, but recently, and there have been a couple of discussions to allow the user to pass a factory to the constructor and have their own object as they want. Another main difference is that the Andre's PR links the content of the store with the propagation mechanism. For instance, propagation of the store will be enabled when you start to set something in the store. And if you don't set anything, the store is not propagated. I personally don't think that a system holding something, holding a payload, should be impacted on how the payload exists or if the payload exists. And I've got methods that start propagation, stop propagation, and set the payload of the store across the event loop. And the other major difference, philosophical difference we have with Andre is about safety. Andre's API is low level and does not provide scoping, so it has the same issue, sorry, not issue, I'm trying to be neutral, the same impact as domain had, meaning that when you start to be you can get really synchronously an inline into a context where the store will be available. And I don't know if you remember in the domain postmortem, one of the issues that you could call run, and every line of code running after run, not in the callback, will be in the error management context of domain. That's something that was really error prone, and I don't want in my PR to expose such APIs. That's why the entry points take a callback, and the store is also only available within that callback. And last but not least, in Andre's PR, there is a way to disable an async local with the method name remove. And after that, interaction with the async local will throw exceptions. In my case, there is no way to fully disable an instance because I don't want to introduce unsafe mechanism where when you call a method, you don't know if it will return undefined, anything else, or throw an exception. That's pretty much the big picture. I tried to be neutral and not to show too much of my opinions, but if I did, please forgive me.
Isn't another major point of debate about syncness or asyncness of callbacks? Or did you describe that and I didn't understand?
So I moved forward on that and I introduced another method named run and return that runs the callback synchronously after iteration with Flarna, who made very good case about it. So the main difference is more about scoping what has access to the async store or leaving it pretty open. For instance, I've got an example that if you've got 3 event listeners on the same event emitter, let's say that the first event listener sets something in the store in Andre's PR, in async local PR, set something in the store, in the scope, the second async listener will have access to it, and maybe the second access listener can remove what's inside, and the third will have access or not access based on what the other listener have done. In my case, the scope is only available through a function or the asynchronous task created within this callback function, meaning that you don't have this weird state where you don't know if you are within a scope or outside of a scope.
One other question is there anything in particular you think the TSC could do to move this forward? Because I think many of us are looking at this thinking, we'd like to see a CLS, but I don't know if the TSC is going to be like, come and say, okay, we're going to go this way. We've decided. Like it's, you guys obviously know way more than us about this.
I guess the main issue, and that's why we are having the TSC part of this discussion, is that there is no, we tried multiple times to discuss with Andre, but the distinction about safe or low level and high level are very present. And right now we are trapped because we don't want to nobody wants to authoritarily take a decision, or nobody has the legitimacy to take a decision. So for instance, the two PRs are blocked by technical issue. My PR currently is blocked because it has been voiced that there should be a choice between the two approaches. But I'm very sad to announce that I don't have a good solution right now. My gut, but totally selfish feeling would be let me merge my PR, but that would be unfair to take a decision based on that single statement.
Okay, one other question, and maybe it's not fair to ask you this, but I'll ask anyhow. So there's two PRs, and it sounds kind of like what makes it sound kind of balanced. Like, you know, there's this one PR, and then there's another PR, and there's two people who can't agree on some of these details. But is it really two? Like, is there a larger group? Is it like one person who's being sticky, or one or two people? Whereas most people think we should go the other way. Like, is there rough consensus, or is there just no consensus, a group split down the middle?
I think one of the issues is that it's a very niche issue. So I know that Stefan is neutral but oriented toward async local. I know that Florida is oriented, I don't know how to pronounce his real name, is oriented toward my PR right now. I know that Westod from expressed interest in a higher level API. The main rationale between a higher level API and a lower level API is that, do we want to ship something that people will use, or do we want to ship something that people will build upon? As an APM/RASP vendor, I don't want people to build too many modules that do context tracking. I desire to have as much as possible standard way in Node.js, because I want us to, I would like us to unify the ecosystem around it and to prevent fiascos such as the CLS hooked, breaking the regular CLS because it overrides what it contains. That's my main rationale why I want a high level API, and that's I think what made sense to Westod, and a few feedback I collected, but I can't show proof for them because I've been discussing with a lot of people over the last year about it, and but I can't put words in their mouth. I guess one of the main questions, and that's the one you asked, Sam, is how can we move forward from that? And I am very sad to say that I have no answer except those that serve my interest and my need to have this API in core, and my willing to have a unified ecosystem around one single way to do it. The good thing is still that it will be experimental. Whatever PR we go with, it will be experimental for a few months or even a year, so we can iterate upon it. It will enable us to iterate as much as we want on async hooks, because there will be a higher level API that people can use to cover 99% of the usage of async hook. And if we don't break this higher level API after it's considered as stable, of course, we will be able to iterate and change the internals. That's why I'm pro having a high as possible API, but still flexible.
Is this some?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I asked if this was something diagnostics could take care of, but Sam just commented that diagnostics kicked it. Diagnostics couldn't come to a resolution, and that's why it's here. So never mind.
So the only thing I can say would be that I will probably be maintaining and making it live and move forward along its life cycle. And my gut feeling and my core belief is that whichever part we go with, whichever PR we go with, we want to move fast, because this topic has been opened for years. Forest Novel opened it before around Node 10, if I'm not mistaken, before Node 0.10, sorry. And I know that in the banking industry, in the insurance industry, or even in the legal industry for a startup in Paris, a lot of people need this kind of thing for legal reasons, traceability reasons. Also, pushing an API that promotes best practice for error management, meaning having a real scope to know what will be covered if people build error management over this API, might be the way out of domain, maybe not for the Node REPL, but at least for our customers who rely on use of habit, for our users who rely on domain for error management and who create a new instance of domain at each HTTP request. We can help them get out of it with not too much change in their code base and a safer thing. And I believe that having people not using deprecated API might be a good thing in the long run.
So is it possible to identify who the informed and invested people are on this committee who, because I'm you describe this topic as somewhat niche. And so there's going to be people who are not either adequately informed or adequately invested, and that's okay. But if we can identify the people who are and sort of, create, I guess, some kind of like, strike team or tiger team or whatever the current fashionable phrase for that is in the business world, kind of just, meet and come to a decision quickly. That is one option forward.
That would make sense. I just don't know who want to take into that.
I mean, clearly Matteo and Sam, but surely there are others.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in this as well.
Michael Dawson too.
The challenge with this one, I mean, it is a really complex topic, and it's hard to just kind of come to a position on it quickly. For something like this, before the work had started, I would have recommended probably just pushing it off into a separate repo like we've done with other large things. And while we work out all the details, and then get an implementation going. I know that, I've got it in my queue to really start digging in. It's a massive, complicated thread of discussion, so it's hard to kind of catch back up to date on where things are at, and it's not a trivial piece of functionality. So I would just say that definitely interested. It's just going to take a little bit of time to dig through.
Well, maybe we should flag the people who are already involved in the conversation, who might already have the context.
I think what might unblock it, unfortunately, even though it's hard, is to broaden the conversation. Like the people who are already involved are bumping ahead, and they're the ones who know it most deeply. It's a little bit. It's hard. What I would want. I don't know if this is possible. Would be like a list of high impact projects that are interested in this functionality, and which of the options would they take? Like if A existed and B existed, I mean, would they rather use A or rather use B, or will they use neither? One thing about kind of if we're forced to vote or something like that, which would be pretty terrible, it's hard to know who's to vote for. I mean, anybody can have an opinion on GitHub. But knowing that there's significant projects in the ecosystem that want to move to either one or the other of these would, I think, like break a logjam. But the people who might use it might not be paying close attention to these conversational threads. I'm wondering if it's possible to reach out to basically the APM vendors or whatever, or open source projects, and get them to agree to one or the other. I know Forrest Norvell. Did Forrest come down on one option or the other, Vladimir?
So Forrest said that he would trust me, trust Stefan and me, because we seem to have the same approach, and my PR is actually much closer to Forrest Norvell's work because that was one of my design goal, was to make an API that looks like what people have been using for the last 7 years for that purpose, because I don't want to bring a brand new API with new concepts that nobody has ever handled. Regarding reaching out to projects, I've been trying to do that for the past year when the PR was told to see if I could find any support in one direction or the other to move forward, and this has been incredibly complicated. I've got like probably 20 to 30 people who told me physically, yes, in my company, in my bank, in my newsroom, in my ex-company, we would like to have that. But I haven't found any open source project except APIs that aims at providing CLS capabilities who could be interested in that, sadly.
Yeah, I would be reluctant to make a call on it, but I have to say that something that looks like CLS and brings it into Node Core, where we can make sure that the ecosystem works well with CLS, it sounds very compelling to me. I know there's a lot of other projects that are using CLS to get their continuation tracking. So anything we could do that would make that thing work alone almost would be a good first step. And if we wanted to diverge off that and build new lower level APIs, that sounds like experimental work, but just getting CLS much higher quality and into core, I don't know, I would go along with that.
I think that's totally doable given the current state of the APIs. The main issue is that right now, to be fully honest, I'm under the impression that Andre, Stefan, and I, and a bit Flarna, but he has more wider view than us. I think we are running in cycle and not being productive anymore. At that point, me being the first.
Would the next steps here be the ask that if anyone has an interest in this or is invested in the discussion, that they kind of add it to their to-do list to weigh in on the discussion now we've got a bit more background from Vladimir?
Just before you
that's a good next step. But it might actually, it might actually be a good idea to have a dedicated call, with the folks that are interested in this, and where we can just talk through for the entire hour on this.
I can try to set up that for the next couple of weeks if the TSC identifies who would be on this call on your side. But I think Sam has a good point in the chat.
So can we invite someone who would be interested, like Sam Sadeler, perhaps someone who could use this IP in other projects? Like perhaps those people do not know of this pull request yet.
As said, I think reaching out to the ecosystem is incredibly hard. I can try to identify a few people, but I always do that on a one-on-one basis. That's pretty much it's pretty much taking a lot of time. It took me like hours of discussions and calls over the last few weeks to try to invest more people into that.
I guess under this item in the minutes for today, we could have a section that of interested parties, and people can add themselves to that list and maybe with suggestions of other people that may be interested. And we can use that to kind of kick off the team that would focus on this discussion. That would just let people identify themselves as being interested in having a focused conversation about this.
Sounds reasonable.
I have to run out, so thanks so much for having me and listening to me. I'm available to all of you if you want to dig deeper into that, or if I can facilitate any moving further in that. I'm deeply invested in this API for 1 year now, so I'm really happy to see if we can reach to a solution.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Vladimir.
And okay, so I think that's kind of covered the next two items on the agenda. So there was just one more in the Node.js TSC repo, which was the Node.js future directions. Any interest online or in person? I think Michael raised this. Michael's on vacation at the moment. So I'm not sure if there's anything in particular to discuss on this today, or it's just socializing.
I think it's not time sensitive. We can probably, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just saying, I'm wondering if it's just a socialized proposal.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing time sensitive about it, so it can just remain on the agenda for next week when Michael's back or whenever he's back.
Yep, sure. And the final one on the first part of the agenda is Node.js admin, and it's the Node.js social media accounts. Just trying to see who added this one. Tierney added the TSC agenda. Is there anything, can anyone provide a summary of this issue and what the TSC need to do to act on it? Or is it just socializing it again?
Since it's a community committee and TSC thing, and Michael is the one who's on both committees, this might be another one that is best to wait. But I don't think it's time sensitive, but maybe someone knows differently. Matteo might have a good idea. And I see he chimed in the chat saying it needs TSC approval. But that's a different thing. Never mind. I'm doing really badly today.
I think the sorry, the social media account thing. Tierney said he was going to, 13 days ago, he said he was going to make a proposal in the next week. That hasn't happened yet. So I think we're kind of waiting on a more concrete proposal from Tierney.
Okay, it sounds like there's nothing time sensitive again on the TSC for that particular item. I will leave it on the agenda for next week because Michael may have some more background being on both committees, as Richard said. So, okay, that's everything on the agenda for today. Is there anything else anyone wants to mention or call out on the public section of the call?
I mean, like I said, there's two issues that were added to the agenda after the meeting issue was created, and I've added them to the Google Doc.
Oh, right, okay, in the doc.
Folks, please, there is the link that I pasted on the travel fund, needs some reviews. It's probably okay to land, but please read it. I put it on the agenda for awareness.
Yeah, I just gave it a quick review.
Okay, I've seen the extra 2 items added to the minutes. It's the in Node.js Node, it's lib, move global, and root aliases to end of life, and that's PR 31167.
And this is James, and it's the one all about. Go ahead.
Yep. So there's a handful of PRs that I've opened that basically just move some things that have been long runtime deprecated to end of life. Rich raised a question: should we just keep these things around? Is there any cost to them? The main motivation for these is, our code base is getting larger. If we can remove things, then we probably should look to do so. It's not gonna have a huge impact, but it just eliminates some corrupt. Maintenance cost is just that, right? It's additional corrupt in size and bulk and that kind of thing. Yes, there's always a non-zero chance that removing something that's been there could break somebody, but these things have been deprecated for a very long time. So I would just argue that we should just go ahead and remove them. But I'll leave it up to the decision of the group.
And I'd add that these are PRs I think that almost everybody here should probably have an opinion on, at least one of them. There's like 4 of them I think that he opened, and they're that James opened, and there's these are ones that nearly everyone here should have an opinion on, I think. And I kind of wonder if the lack of activity on these things means that a lot of people are either +0, like, yeah, I'm fine if it happens, but I really don't feel strongly enough about it to endorse it, or the other way, -0, which is kind of where I am, where I'm just like, I guess I'd prefer that these just remain, but I'm not gonna fight about it, kind of thing. So it would be great to just have more participation in these things, even if even if it's just a comment that you don't have strong feelings.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same as you do. Like, I don't think we should do this at all, but also like, yeah, it's not something like really worth making a big fuss about, because these are all already runtime deprecated, which means they're already broken basically. So it's like,
It's hard to, I'm not going to exaggerate the difficulty of maintaining a couple of deprecated APIs, but we do bump into them. I've fixed tests that fail because of them. I've had to kind of readjust messages and make things work, and so there is some maintenance cost of them. And when you're in the process of doing it, I've definitely had the couldn't we have deleted this already feeling. If something's been emitting to console.error a warning for the entire lifetime of all of our LTS releases, like from 10 onwards, I think it's a reasonable. I'm personally okay with it getting deleted without some sort of sitgem or outcry from the community. And if there was a huge outcry from the community by some strange thing, it's semver minor to bring it back. So.
Yeah, and that last point is exactly why I don't feel strongly about it. If it ends up being like the buffer constructor deprecation, the initial one, if it ends up being something like that, we're just going to put it back and it'll be fine.
Okay, it sounds like the ask here is just that we all take a look at all of the things that have been marked as end of life, and if we have an opinion on them, express it, and even express if you are neutral and don't have an opinion. But just add some comments.
Yeah, sounds all right. A couple of them already have a couple of TSC members signed off. They've already passed CI and SitGem. So technically they can land. I'm just not going to unless, if just basically giving a chance for anybody to object on those. So.
Sure. Okay, I think there was one other issue on added to the list, and it's source remove duplicate end field from CryptoJob. and it's PR 31588 over in Node.js Node.
This one specifically involves a complaint against me, so I'm opting out of this discussion.
Okay.
So I think the only person involved from the TSC besides me and James is Colin, who commented on the PR. So just for context, a new person on the team at Neoform that James and I work on, Connor, opened a PR, like not too complex, it's good first contribution. Basically, that their North House didn't feel was the best approach to solving that particular issue. And so he opened a separate second PR that he would have preferred. And Will James landed the original PR from Connor, while the other PR was still open. And I don't know if I'm accurately like describing Ben's concerns. I think Colin tried to sum them up as it's not okay to land a PR that was like implicitly being blocked on another, but yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it either because like James, I'm involved on that team.
I'm not sure that there was like a, flagrant violation of principles or anything that went on there, but it definitely, it definitely was a lot touchier. There was more, there was something going on there that probably we'd want to, at least like think about how we can make things work a little smoother and a little better.
Right.
Cool. Is there anything on this call further to discuss about it, or is it something that could be taken offline?
The first PR has landed, right? The PR by Connor.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there's like anything like to do in terms of code changes or landing PRs or not landing them. I think it's like Rich said, this is something that we may want to like, have an idea of how we're going to deal with it in the future if it ever comes up again.
Okay. But it still makes sense to have the other PR open because it makes changes beyond that original PR. It does, but okay. But I mean, like conceptually, they do the same thing. So I'm not sure if Ben wants to pursue his PR or not at this point. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, it sounds like in future we might want to maybe drop some wording around this to say if that how we handle when there are two very similar PRs, and whether we actually want to have some kind of longer baking time for two PRs that are open. I don't know if we want to go down that route, but it sounds like something to bear in mind and maybe consider writing in either the reviewing pull request part of the collaborator guide or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're almost at time. Were there any updates from the strategic initiatives?
On quick initiative, by Friday, I should be I should have the draft PR updated based on the current status as a quick repository. Doing some work now to kind of make sure tests and things like that are are largely functional before doing that. One outstanding to do that I've had since interactive, I haven't been able to get back to it, is I need to have a call, basically where I want to walk people, anyone who's interested, through the PR, since it is so massive. Just give folks some background on how to where to start actually doing the review. I'd like to do that sometime next week. I'll have to look for a day, time that works best, and I will and I'll get that scheduled. So.
Okay, thanks, James. Is there any other strategic initiative updates today? Or anything else anyone wants to mention? Okay, with that, I'll stop the stream and end the meeting. Matteo's just said there has been some progress on promises. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks for joining, everyone. Speak to you all later.
Yeah, do we have a private section?